Hey family, this is Stan, the host of the podcast Talking with Friends. Just have a quick little insert that came to me this morning rather, and I hope it encourages somebody who is listening. Like, share, and subscribe our podcast that we post. We want to build a community. We want to inspire and encourage as many people as we possibly can with the different guests that we have on, where they share their stories, their testimonies, or portions of their life that required God to move, or in their creative process, whether they're singer, songwriter, dancer, producers, entrepreneurs, elders of the gospel, ministers of the gospels, pastors. So we got a whole lot of friends that will be on the podcast that will share their insights, and hopefully something that is said will encourage you to keep going, to keep believing, to keep pressing forward. This came to me early this morning, and actually yesterday I think it was. It's reminding yourself about your past struggles and your past battles, your past seasons that you didn't think that you would make it out of. But I was encouraged when I was reading 1 Samuel, where David is preparing to I think he's preparing to fight Goliath, if I'm not mistaken, and he has to do this mental cookie jar thing for a second, where he reminds himself of the things that God has brought him through before. He's basically a sheep herder at that time, so he has maintained the sheep. But to maintain the sheep, he has encountered a bear, a lion, and so he uses these things as to say, God made a way for me to take out the bear. God made a way for me to take out the lion. And basically he's saying, if God did that then with those two things, then taking you out, Goliath, you don't stand a chance, because I have a personal recollection, a personal resume of what God can do through me and in my life, because I've seen him do it. You know what I'm saying? If he's done it before, he'll do it again, basically. So just want to encourage somebody that if you're going through something and you're coming out of a season where you just went through something, and it's like, God, man, every time I turn around, it's something. And I think we've all been there, where if it's not one thing, it's another. You get the job situated, you got your tasks down, you know how to do your job, and then all of a sudden the hot water heater at the house goes out, or you get the house in order, and then all of a sudden something in your health begins to go in a direction, But pretty much that's life. But at the same time, we got to do like David did. I mean, and I'm speaking for me too as well. My God, just knowing that anything and everything can happen, but also above all of that, just remembering that we serve the God of his children. He loves his children, and the same thing that he did for us in a prior season, he's going to show up in the next season, and the next season, and the next season, to fully convince us that he's with us, he's for us, and that he's never going to leave us in any situation that we find ourselves in, even if we dug the hole for ourselves. I've been there, dug a hole for myself, and was like, man, you can't do nothing about this, because I did this myself. And God being God, what did he do? Reached right down and pulled me out of that hole, dust me off, and gave me a reassurance and a new understanding of who he is, what he can do, even when I think that I've reached the point where I've gotten out of his reach, out of his hand, I'm out of his will. He has a way of showing us that the same thing that he does for the person who does not know him, as a sinner, not being a child of God, he does the same thing for us being his children, and he has no problem with repeating that cycle over and over again. to give us a clear understanding so that we know, like some of the OGs say, of the faith, so that we know who he is and what he can do. And there's just something that came to me yesterday morning, and this morning it kind of echoed, and I was listening to something not too long ago, and it was kind of echoing the same thing again. And I said, well, this must be God speaking, that I need to put this in the atmosphere, especially on the podcast, to let anybody know who's listening, anybody who taps in to tune in to our to the podcast, to know that no matter what the situation is, even if it's something that you dug the hole for yourself, God is going to be God at the end of the day. And he's going to come and see about his children. He's going to come and do for his children. There's a scripture that says that he will leave the 99 to come and find the one. So it doesn't matter if you have been saved for 20, 30 years. He's going to do the same thing for you as the same person who just gave their life to the Lord this morning, And he has no problem with doing that over and over and over again, to solidify, to stamp that he is God in your heart. So it's just something that I wanted to encourage my listeners, to remind my listeners that he'll do it over and over again to prove his point. And he has no problem with doing it over and over again in your life, in your family's life, to show exactly, to prove his point, to drive his message home. And most importantly, for you to keep a mental cookie jar. I like to call it a cookie jar because you put it in the cookie jar, the things that he's done, the things that he's brought you out of, the things that he's protected you from. So that on any time, any day, you can go in that mental cookie jar and pull out a time where there was a situation where you didn't know how this was going to get taken care of. There was a threat with your health. There was your child started acting a certain way out of nowhere, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? And knowing that, being reminded of what he did the last time, So always being reminded that God is going to move. He's gonna orchestrate something so that this thing works out in my favor, and ultimately so that he can get the glory. So you keep little things like that in your mental cookie jar so that you'll always be reminded. I mean, in the scripture, they would build altars, especially if it was something significant that happened that could only be God. They would build altars to remind anybody who came upon that in future time of what happened here. To be a reminder to people of what God did in a situation that seemed to be impossible, but he ultimately ends up doing the impossible and being a reminder. So he'll say, build this altar as a reminder to your children's children of what happened here and how the Lord moved. So I call it a mental cookie jar, but in the Bible, they used altars. They would build altars as what happened on, at this particular place where we needed a miracle. It looked impossible, but God ended up moving. So always keep your mental cookie jar full of the things that you've seen God do. And then, most of the, if not all of the time, most of the time, this ain't even these things that you're putting in this cookie jar ain't even for you, because you're going to have children, and your children going to have children, and there has to be a reminder of voice echoing saying, hey, well, this is the God that we serve. Grandma at the certain particular age, she ran into this, but we saw God move. We prayed, we believed it, and we saw God move. Or something was going on with our home and we needed God to do something impossible, and he did just that. So, that mental cookie jar that you have is a reminder to the generations to come that if God did it then, he'll do it now. The same way David he reminded himself, he went in his mental cookie jar and remembered that if God protected me and gave me the strength and everything that I needed to overcome that lion and to also overcome the bear, he'll give me what I need to make it through the next obstacle, which was a bigger obstacle, which was a Goliath. So I just wanted to shoot a little bit of encouragement into your day to let you know that if God did it before, he will do it again. Same way David was reminded of what he did with the lion and with the bear. Always keep a mental cookie jar as to what God has done in your life. Always be reminded of it. Even if you got to go through it 100 times when you're facing something that seems impossible, as a reminder of what God has done in the past and what he will continue to do in the future. In the same way they build altars as a reminder to say, on this place right here, there was a miracle that if it didn't happen, we would have perished. But knowing that we built this altar here, it's a reminder to say that we needed the miracle. It looked impossible, but God did the impossible at this place. So always be reminded of what God has done in your life in past seasons, and always know that the same God who did that then is the same God that will do the impossible now and also in the future. Once again, this is your host, Stan, of the podcast, Talking with Friends. I hope this encouraged you. If you know someone who is facing an obstacle or facing a tough season, feel free to share it, like it, subscribe, leave your comments in the comment section of the podcast on any episode that you want to, especially this one. If it did encourage you, I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate your support. And also keep the faith. Always keep the faith, and have a great day.